when something changes inside of a template, like which expressions do you run, and then run change detection against to see like what DOM updates do I need to do. And today the granularity of update for signals in Angular is a component. We run the component and all of the embedded views within it. And the reason is because signals are mixed in with non-signals, with other Zone.js, or async pipe for RxJS even. And so we're kind of trying to find the thing that balances being able to start using signals, but not having to migrate your entire component to use signals, which would allow for more granular updates. So at some point, we will have a flavor of component that the RFC called signal components, which has that guarantee. Angular knows now that everything in that template must be changing through a signal. And that lets us play with the granularity of updating on a more finer basis than just doing the whole component. So out of the box, I think we're going to switch to doing what we call per view granularity. So that's like if you imagine a table with 1,000 rows rendered in a for loop, every row would be a separate update zone. So instead of doing the whole component and all 1,000 rows at once, you do each row individually as it changes with the signal. This is a trade-off between how much memory it takes to build this dependency graph and how much time it takes to update things when something changes. And so per view is kind of, we think, is a sweet spot there. Solid does it on a per element basis. So each element in Solid with all of the bindings inside that element update as one thing. Which is a bit more granular than view, less granular than individual expressions.
And I love having the Angular team involved in proposals like this, because we know that like going forward, and not just the Angular team, but like having everybody collaborating on this, because it's so much easier for us to follow where things are going when everyone's going in the same direction. It's really nice.
So when you talk about application performance, like there's weird trade-offs like Alex was saying. So the more granular you are, as he was saying, the more signals you'd end up with in memory, because every signal has something that in memory that's attached to it, and plus the dependency graph and that sort of thing. But the more granular the updates, the faster your renders will be. However, the more in memory you have, the more JavaScript you probably executed to get there, and the more like you're going to see garbage collection, like because the garbage collection runs in the same thread. You'll see that cause some shearing in your performance from time to time as the garbage collector does its business. But, you know, in the happiest sense, if you had very granular updates and your graph wasn't that big, then you'd have a very, very, very fast application, because it's going to be almost what you would write if you were just doing plain DOM manipulation, just like update this thing, update this thing, update this thing. And like you wouldn't be trying to figure out if you need to update every element in a section or whatever. So
this is not an active project. This is not something we're like looking at doing. But one of our like crazier ideas, something that we're interested in researching and seeing if there's any like teeth here, is what if we could set this granularity slider inside of a component dynamically? So Angular could say, okay, we'll start off updating the whole view or the whole component at once, because maybe this thing renders and then like doesn't update ever again. And so there's no point in creating this like lots of memory usage to track individual expressions. But if we determine that like this is actually the stock ticker in your application and it's updating at 60 times a second, then Angular would like almost like a just-in-time compilation thing say, oh, let's dynamically adjust the granularity down so we start tracking individual expressions separately. We decide it's okay to pay the memory cost because the performance benefit is worth it for that part of the application. If we could do something like this automatically.
I love that.
It's a new idea. I don't think it's ever been tried before, but I think it's something we could potentially look into.
Render update inlining.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So like the framework would detect that, oh, this is actually a hot update path, and we need to optimize that on the fly.
I think that would also help with, because one of the things that I saw quite a bit when I was doing enterprise consulting and all the training that I've done is that there are a lot of developers out there, and I was one of them, so I'm not judging. There are a lot of developers out there who don't really have a great understanding of the change detection cycle and how it works. And so they're just out there kind of and this is something that I talked about just a few days ago, that when you're putting a lot of business logic in your HTML, and Angular allows you to do that, but that's not scalable. I mean, it's this is the thing, your code will work, but if you, and I did the same thing when I first found Angular. I was like ng all the things. I was having so much fun. And so everything was ng this and ng that. And then when I moved it to production, it was really slow. And so this is the thing, is like, I think there are so many people that blame it on Angular, but it's really how you, like, if you it's same thing with RxJS. If you don't really understand RxJS, you can actually slow down your own code by accident because you're just using the wrong, things. And so, yeah, so I think I think that it might also kind of help with that, to have, like, if you have so much going on that all these things are dynamic that don't need to be, then maybe that would also be another thing, that the dynamic change detection, that's would really be helpful.
Right.
So
go ahead.
We talked. Yeah, go ahead. It's funny.
Sorry. I was just gonna say RxJS suffers from a completely different thing than what frameworks do, which is RxJS is asynchronous programming, and straight up, like, no matter how simplified you make, like, actually the simpler your asynchronous programming looks, the more likely there's a lot of bugs in it. Like, it's just not an easy thing. So anyone that's like, oh, I hate this RxJS stuff, it's like, well, okay, but you probably just hate asynchronous programming.